Hey, Kentucky, this is Mary Jo Perino. Tonight, hospitals around the Bluegrass announced layoffs during the COVID-19 budget crunch. UK basketball lands a new grad transfer, and I'll visit with Senate candidate Benny J. Smith. All that and more is next on Hey, Kentucky. Welcome to Hey, Kentucky with LEX 18 Sports Director Keith Farmer. Happy Friday. Not that we ever know what day it is, but it is Friday.
Yeah, that is true. It feels like this week's just flown by, and I think it's just because, yeah, you're right. I wake up every day and I'm like, what day is it?
I know, we're Bill Murray in Groundhog's Day.
Yes.
All right, let's get started. The COVID-19 crisis has been taking a toll on hospital budgets around the state. Now some of our biggest locations are having to cut back. Some UK healthcare workers are being reassigned, while others will be temporarily furloughed. Many employees won't be affected, but some will be redeployed to meet needs elsewhere as elective surgeries and procedures have been suspended. Baptist Health says it's temporarily furloughing some of its employees at all 8 hospital systems. Those impacted are full and part-time employees in jobs that do not support caregivers or are not critical to clinical operations related to the coronavirus. In Louisville, U of L Hospital says it will implement targeted employee furloughs and cut pay for top administrators and faculty members by as much as 10%, among other steps to deal with the financial fallout. There was also word of 248 hospital layoffs in Western Kentucky. Meanwhile, UK's workers received a pick-me-up today in the form of a vehicle parade. Keith, I think when this whole thing started, we thought, well, those in the healthcare system are going to be immune to losing their jobs, but that has not been the case.
No, it certainly hasn't. And a lot of people out there are just like, what is going on here? Don't we need these people? But I'm sure it's the ones that are not fighting the COVID-19 pandemic right now. And right now, they're just not needed. Not as many of us are going to hospitals or to doctors for elective or other sicknesses.
Yeah, or well visits. So much of their time is spent with, annual exams or things of that nature, and those just aren't happening right now.
And they may not have the credentials to go do something else with COVID-19.
Correct. All right, before the Lexington and Louisville layoffs, up to 1,000 hospital workers across northeastern Kentucky were already dealing with the news of job cuts. One state representative wrote an op-ed highlighting the need to protect rural hospitals across the Bluegrass. Danny Bentley of Boyd County is pushing a bill that would provide loans to bridge the gap. His editorial says House Bill 387 would create a rural hospital operation and facilities revolving loan fund to support healthcare facilities in small towns and rural communities across Kentucky. Loans through this bill would help hospitals like Our Lady of Bellefonte maintain or upgrade facilities, keep or grow staffing, and provide health services that are not currently available at those facilities. Keith, that was the largest employer in Boyd County, that hospital. So these rural areas need this.
And I realize that Huntington, West Virginia is just right across the border there. So they're probably thinking people can go there. But there are so many rural areas that we have sent doctors to because they were needed. And they need a place to do this. And it would be great to see this loan happen to keep these hospitals in these rural areas.
Absolutely. All right, a former EKU softball player is experiencing life on the front lines of the pandemic in Spain, where cases of coronavirus spiked before they did here in the U.S. Stacey Toops is serving as a fourth-year medical student. She moved to Spain to teach English and stayed to study medicine. Toops works at a nursing home, and she says her days now consist of calling families to update them on their loved ones, caring for patients, even crying with them.
I have one patient that doesn't have the virus, but she has to be contained in isolation, and her sister was there with her. She doesn't know that her sister died. We can't tell her because that would destroy her. So then whenever she cries, I cry.
Do you fear getting the virus?
No. I feel that I'm healthy enough that I can withstand it. I also can't allow myself to fear getting it because then I can't take care of my patients. I want to be there for them. I want to be able to help them.
Oh, that's heartbreaking. Toop says the hardest part is having to isolate patients. Some have died in isolation. On top of that, she says she and her coworkers are forced to reuse personal protective equipment. And Keith, it's just important to note that things are still, on a full scale across the world.
Yeah, I mean, we sometimes think, all right, everything's getting better in China or Italy, and you forget that, yeah, it's getting better, but it's still going on and it's still affecting so many. And it's, I mean, good to see that we've got somebody that was local that is helping out where she can.
Absolutely. Advocates for Kentucky's nursing home residents are sounding the alarm about a lack of protection from COVID-19. They say the facilities do not have the same access to PPE as hospitals and that many of them aren't set up to test or care for infected patients who are discharged by a hospital. Some in the nursing home industry are asking the governor to address the situation, going beyond his early action to restrict visitors. As of yesterday, 26 of the state's 285 long-term care facilities had coronavirus cases. 104 residents and 48 employees had tested positive, and 16 residents had died. Kentucky is preparing to launch a long-term care advisory task force. And Keith, I do think the governor is very aware of this and made comments to this yesterday.
Yeah, and I'm forgetting his first name, but the guy Stack that's always standing there with him was pretty emotional when he was talking about this yesterday, because they had to try and get some of those folks basically out of there, the ones that they could protect. And it's a sad thing because we know that this hits the older generation much harder.
Absolutely. All right, with many people hurting during the coronavirus shutdowns, LEX18 and the Scripps Howard Foundation are teaming up with God's Pantry Food Bank for Hope Over Hunger. We at the station are encouraging businesses to consider matching our $10,000 donation. If you need help or would like to support the cause, just go to lex18.com/hope. And if you own or manage a restaurant during this time, LEX18 would like you to share your story by heading to lex18.com/open. You can submit your business there or find links to see restaurants and businesses that are open during the crisis. Now let's talk some hoops. First up, Coach Cal has found a guard on the graduate transfer market. Creighton's Davion Mintz has announced his commitment to UK, transferring to the program for his final year of eligibility. He's rated as the number 25 overall grad transfer by Stadium Rankings and number 33 overall by ESPN. In other news, bracketologist Joe Lenardi is showing Kentucky some love in a way too early bracket for next year. He projects UK as a number 1 seed in the South, beginning NCAA tournament play in Detroit against the winner of Norfolk State or Robert Morris. Lenardi's other top seeds, Gonzaga, Creighton, and Villanova. Well, while we wait to see which current players will be back in Lexington next season, Coach Cal brings in another number 1 ranked class, including 6 of the top 50 prospects. Coach Cal is spending his downtime on a new web series called Coffee with Cal, airing Monday mornings at 10.
We're going to have some great guests on. A former president is going to be on. I'm not going to mention names yet. Mark Cuban's going to be on. We're in touch with Dr. Fauci. Wow. And he is really busy right now. I was hoping he'd be the first guest, but he may not be the first guest, but we're going to get him on. Dick Vitale and I talked today. I told him what I'm doing. He said, I want to get on. Let me get on. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're going to have Dick Vitale on. But we're going to have Dick on. Who's more uplifting than Dick Vitale?
Now, Cal is doing this with the end goal being to raise enough money to feed 10 million people during the pandemic. Keith, Cal is so great at doing these kind of things, but I want to take a step back and talk Davion Mintz for just a minute, because he fills a huge need.
Yeah, he is not an overly impressive player. I mean, 10 points, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists in his junior year, but where I think he's going to help this team is that he didn't just play in 79 games at Creighton. He started 79 games. He's going to have a wealth of knowledge to help out these young players, especially like a Devin Askew or a Terrence Clark.
Yes, the leadership factor. And listen, he's going just from one projected number 1 seed to another projected number 1 seed. So it's not like he was playing with a lower caliber of players necessarily. He was still in a good team.
Yeah, and everybody seems to think the Big East was a pretty strong league this season. So, I mean, he's gone up against some of the top players, and here he is again, getting to go to Kentucky and play some top teams.
All right, very cool. Now on Hey Kentucky, in case you missed it, a review of recent headlines. The GE plant in Louisville has been working to address workers' complaints about the company's controversial decision to stay open. The appliances maker is giving production employees and service technicians a pay raise and some optional leave of absence. Meanwhile, some are perplexed by the news that Kentucky was not part of a national run on guns when the outbreak flared up last month. We had a significant drop in criminal background checks for gun sales as opposed to record-setting numbers elsewhere. And one of Matt Bevin's controversial pardons is back in the news. Dayton Jones has been charged with a federal offense stemming from the sodomy case that landed him in prison before. Up next on Hey Kentucky, we catch up with another Democratic candidate for the U.S. Senate. Benny J. Smith talks about his 2020 campaign when we return.